I can't help but stare at his wedding ring as his hand moves to cup my breast. Are my breasts prettier than his wife's? Am I prettier than his wife? Therapy. Now, today we are reviewing Colleen Hoover's new book, Woman Down, or as I like to call it, Woman Down Bad. This book is advertised as a thriller. I think that's up for debate. And if you enjoy this video, I would really appreciate if you subscribed. My goal right now is to get 1,000 subscribers because I have the watch hours to get monetized, but I don't have the subscriber count. And if I hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to get this costume for Miss Monster here to wear since she already thinks that she's the queen of my videos. Now that my begging is out of the way, let's get into this review. I honestly didn't think I'd be reviewing another Colleen Hoover book anytime soon because I'm trying to focus on horror and thriller novels, but I saw that this book is actually advertised as a thriller. So I was like, let me check it out. Because as I've said before, when reading her romance books, a lot of her male love interests off as creepy characters that I think should be in thrillers. Yeah, I've been saying Miss Hoover should be a thriller writer. The first book of hers I actually ever read was Verity, which I have a review of in this video. And at the time, I thought this has potential outside of all the issues I named in that video. And then I was sorely disappointed with every other book of hers that I read. And I've read a lot because I love to torture myself. But yeah, basically that's all to say. I had hope for this book. I thought she was finally finding her genre. I think I might have been wrong, basically. But yeah, we'll get into that. So this book is described on Goodreads as a frustrated author looks for her muse in a remote hideaway, but what she finds defies all expectations and reality. Her words used to set the page on fire, but a viral backlash over her latest film adaptation forced Petra Rose to take a hiatus, resulting in missed deadlines and an overdue mortgage. Branded a fraud and fame-hungry opportunist, she learned the hard way what happens when the internet turns on you, and she's been uninspired to write ever since. Now with her next suspense novel outlined and savings nearly gone, she retreats to a secluded lakeside cabin, hoping to find inspiration. It's Petra's last-ditch attempt to save her career and herself. Then he shows up. Detective Nathaniel Saint arrives with disturbing news, his presence igniting a creativity in her she thought long since burned out. Petra's words return in a rush, and her fictional cop character begins to mirror the very real cop who's becoming her muse. Their research sessions begin to blur the lines between fantasy and reality, and she figures out that her inspiration comes at a cost, basically. I guess this is expanded from a previous short story she wrote called Saint, after the character in the book, and she writes in the foreword asking the audience to not try to make ties between her real life and this book, that there are none. I beg to differ, and I will let you know why. So, in chapter 1, the book opens, and we are listening to a podcast titled And What Now, Readers? Where hosts Kelly and Micah discuss book drama, and they are talking about our main character, Petra Rose, and her whole movie adaptation controversy, and how her reputation has erupted into literary flames. And this is what they have to say. Let's rewind for those of you new to the alphabet. A Terrible Thing is, by reader standards, not such a terrible book. It is a deeply emotional and beautifully crafted novel about Elise and her journey through love, trauma, identity, along with a pinch of fun. You get a little bit of everything in this realistic romance, so it's honestly shocking how huge the book got without it having a single dragon or wizard. But it's because it wasn't just sexy, cheap romance, it was character development, moral complexity, and fiction gold. We get it, you liked it, get to the good stuff, Micah says. It used to be my favorite book, Kelly says defensively. It can still be your favorite book. Not after this, Kelly says. Okay, so the love triangle. Elise, Ash, and Caleb. You truly have to have been on a 5-year trek in the jungle not to have at least seen an Ash and Caleb meme. Whole subreddits were devoted to that emotional tug of war. But then the movie adaptation happened. Micah groans. Calling that an adaptation is a stretch, Kelly says, but this adaptation had promise and a high budget. It was a majorly hyped up movie that the studio and author were being very oddly hush-hush about. We weren't even getting cast updates outside of two of the main characters. There was zero mention of our beloved character Caleb. He was nowhere to be found when the trailer dropped. Just poof. And that was enough to almost start a war when the trailer dropped without a single clip of him in it. That was a bit redundant there. But people still showed up for the movie, despite the early concerns spreading throughout TikTok. And the concerns expressed on this podcast. Micah says, you talked about it every day. Fine, I was Team Caleb. Anyway, they cut him. Cut the entire triangle, restructured the story to make it all about Ash and his connection with Elise. And fans were not happy, not even Team Ash fans, because what the hell were they supposed to do with all the merch the author sold them? Team Ash wasn't even a thing that made sense after the monstrosity of a movie. It made it seem like wearing a hashtag Team Ash shirt meant you were not Team Elise, but we were all Team Elise. We were betrayed, Micah. Betrayed. Yes, like screaming in the rain while covered in red wine stains levels of betrayed, he says. Let's not discuss that night. I was upset. They both laugh. Okay, Kelly says. We all know how Hollywood works and how most authors don't get a say in how their adaptations turn out. There are a lucky few who do, but for the majority, it's not up to them. And Petra initially took that classic don't blame me route. She posted to Insta with something like, hey besties, I had no creative control, I was just as shocked as you all were. And honestly, we were so ready to believe her, Micah says, for about 5 seconds, until cue dramatic pause. An old text exchange between Petra and one of the producers leaks. Not only did she know about the change, she liked it. Yes, what was it she said in that conversation? Kelly asks. I have it here. I shall read it, Micah says. You're right, there's a lot out there about him being realistic. I'm fine with that character being cut. Might make it a stronger film with Caleb and the love triangle out. That stronger film with Caleb outline sent people into orbit, Kelly says. Like stronger? Stronger? You don't erase half an entire fandom and call it a decluttering session. The backlash was immediate, Micah says. TikTok, Reddit, X, formerly Twitter, but let's be real, still just Twitter, all blew up with hashtags like cancel Petra and hashtag a terrible adaptation and hashtag a terrible author, which is why I stand behind A Terrible Thing being the worst novel title ever. Too easy to roast. So easy, Kelly says. And now there are fans literally burning their copies of A Terrible Thing. We are in a full literary rebellion. They feel personally betrayed, as do I. She lied to us. She chose the industry over the intimacy that made her book matter, and the fandom that made her a star. She erased everything that made us love this book in the first place and then blamed it on a few critiques she received, despite hundreds of thousands of readers who praised it. Okay, that was a lot, but I just wanted to give you guys the backstory on why she's facing this controversy. And I just have to say right away, her asking us not to make connections between her real life and the book, pretty impossible considering the backlash Petra received over the movie adaptation mirrors the backlash that Colleen Hoover received over the It Ends With Us adaptation. She even admits in the foreword that this book, A Woman Down, or Woman Down, is the first thing she's written since that whole controversy, the first thing she's written in 3 years. So how are we not supposed to assume this book is just a way for her to complain about that whole situation and paint herself out as the victim? Like, yes, it was the backlash over the movie adaptation for different reasons, yes, but probably because it would have just been too obvious to say what really happened with the It Ends With Us controversy. Also, the part about Petra and the producer's texts being leaked is exactly what happened with Colleen, Blake Lively, and Justin Baldoni's text being released. How do you expect the reader not to draw conclusions here, or connections here? Like, you're basically assuming your audience is dumb if you think they're not going to make that connection. Sorry to say. But I think this was a self-insert.
No, this isn't about me.
Basically, Petra has been radio silent on social media since this whole controversy for the past year since the movie was released. And then on the podcast, they announced that the producer of the movie, Alistair Jones, is joining them, and Petra is the one who's listening to the podcast, of course, and she turns it off because She's not gonna listen to that. She says listening to that podcast was the worst few minutes she has lived through since her texts with Alistair leaked. And now she is on her way to a cabin to work on her next book that she has to write so she doesn't lose her house. You did nothing wrong, I say to myself as I pull slowly back onto the highway. You did nothing wrong. What the world thinks of you isn't who you are. I've repeated this mantra since Nora made me promise to say it at least 5 times a day, but I just feel like I'm repeating a lie out loud, and that feeling doesn't leave me refreshed and ready to skip along and tackle my day. In summary, her life has fallen apart since this whole movie fiasco. Definitely not like Colleen Hoover's did. Her book sales have plummeted. Her friends, besides Nora, have all ghosted her. Her anxiety has been at an all-time high, and she has terrible writer's block. But as she's on her way to this cabin to try to write, she gets a call from her best friend Nora, who gives her shit when Petra admits that she has been listening to the podcast, and she actually called to tell her to avoid the podcast. She then suggests that Petra should just post an apology on her social media, and Petra replies, I'm not writing an apology to people who don't know the whole story, but choose to take sides regardless. So maybe just tell the whole story then. But Nora is insisting that Petra has to get back online if she wants to save her career. But Petra insists that she's going to get her revenge by going to the cabin to write. And then we go into chapter 2. So she's pulling up to the cabin, and on the way she notices there's another cabin near her, which kind of annoys her because when she booked the place, she thought there was no neighbors around, but she just missed the cabin on Google Maps. Luckily, this other cabin is a quarter mile away, and she's relieved because she needs complete quiet and solitude to write, apparently. She's super distracted by other people, so basically that's why she's getting away. But then as she pulls into her driveway, she sees a person and is immediately annoyed because she thought she wouldn't have to see the person she was booking the place from. And she says, I don't even know him and I already find him the most irritating thing in the world. I take that back. The shape of corgis is pretty damn irritating. There's something about a corgi that's just unfinished. It's as if God started making the dog breed and walked away from them when he was only halfway into the design, leaving them in this weird limbo. Their bodies are too long for their stumpy legs, their heads too big for the rest of their bodies, like they might faceplant with every step. Anytime I see one, I can't help but feel like it's a cosmic mistake walking around on 4 legs. If there were a corgi at this guy's feet, I'd question whether I had died and gone to hell. Why are we suddenly talking about corgis? And why do we have so much vitriol for this dog breed, which I honestly think is cute, and I'm not even a dog person, really, so.
Release the corgis!
Like, this just feels so out of nowhere. And then she goes, why am I in such a bad mood? Oh yeah, the podcast. Yeah, you don't need to remind us of that, girl. We read that like a page ago. Anyway, she starts worrying that this guy, who she presumes is the one she rented the cabin from, is a murderer, like, for no reason. But dude cheerfully says hi, which annoys her even more. I hate that I find cheerful people immediately unlikable. I'm aware that's a flaw within myself, but I have too many flaws to worry about polishing that one. Girl, you sound miserable to be around. I'm not gonna lie. I already don't like you. Anyway, this poor guy that she already hates because he's friendly,
That's a federal crime.
that's a crime, I guess, grabs her luggage for her, and she's annoyed by how rough he is with it because apparently it's super expensive and brand new. But he asks her if she's the writer lady and tells her that his wife saw her movie and wanted her to ask Petra why one of the characters was missing, which obviously annoys her. And then he suggests that his life would make an interesting novel, which I guess is something people tell her a lot. Like, they ask her to write about their lives. And she's like, well, I write fiction, so I'm not really the person for you. And I don't know, when I tell people I write, I've personally never been asked to write someone's life story. But let me know, authors out there, if that's the thing you experience a lot. Anyway, she gets into the cabin and it turns out to be super modern inside with minimalist decor, concrete floors, harsh lighting, and all white walls, which just ew. Like, I hate like modern farmhouse type of decor. But to her credit, she's also disappointed by this because that's not the interior that was advertised on the website. But he lets her know that they just remodeled the place and she's the first one to stay there since then. I don't know. I personally would be like, well, that's still false advertising because that's not the pictures you had on your site, but she accepts it. Apparently, Louis, this guy, and his wife live in that other cabin that she passed, and much to her dismay, Louis offers for her to come over to dinner sometime that week, which she's obviously not going to do. But yeah, he leaves, and then she has more of a pity party about how everyone hates her now. The whole first third of this book is just a pity party about how everybody hates her now. Just so you know. I always feared this would happen. The loss of anonymity. I can't say that for some reason, but I don't think I ever imagined it happening on this level. When I first began writing, I did it purely for fun. It was a need, something I could escape to when my real life got hectic. It was exciting and readers were excited. I'd write about anything I felt like writing about. Hot MMA fighters, aliens attacking Earth, farmers falling in love with city girls. 17 books later, my name was out there and bills were getting paid and life was good. I felt like I was on top of the world. Unfortunately, gravity pulled everyone back down, and boy did I fall hard. It was like someone sliced a hole in my parachute and threw my descent on live television for the entire world to see, which is why I'm in the predicament I am in. Way too far behind on a deadline and a house with a past due mortgage, and the icing on the cake, writer's block. And then we go to chapter 3. It's 8 hours later, she has made no progress writing and is beating herself up for it. And honestly, I feel that too, girl. Then we get a bit of what she has written so far, which is basically that her character, Rhea, is being interviewed by a detective that she has the hots for. That's it. But she decides to take a break and she looks outside to see a figure move in the distance, which terrifies her until she realizes it's Louis, who was outside catching a raccoon in a trap. Anyway, Nora then calls her with an idea on how to help her situation, and she suggests that they go live in their private group, which is something they used to do a lot until a year ago. I, the author who used to churn out 2 books a year with effortless grace, haven't even been able to finish the one I started 18 months ago, nor have I been able to face live questions since the last live video I did ended so badly. Tell me that's not a self-insert. Tell me. Tell me it's not. Girl, you're just talking about yourself. Let's be for real. Apparently their last live took place the day after the movie released, and it went really poorly, ending with Petra in tears, so she has not gone live with Nora since then. But she agrees this time. They go live. She talks about her getaway to write and how she has writer's block. And when she receives a question about why this book has taken her so long to write, she responds that the attention she has been receiving, whether it's positive or negative, has really gotten to her, and it makes her stressed about writing and about future public events. Like, basically, there's just a lot more pressure on her now. I guess I find it difficult writing something I've never experienced, I say. Nora lets out a laugh, a sharp burst of disbelief. Bullshit, she says. Your best-selling novel was about a woman who fell in love with an ex-convict. You never dated an ex-convict. Exactly, and several reviewers said it was unrealistic. I wonder what other author wrote about one of her characters falling in love with an ex-convict. Not Miss Colleen Hoover, is it? This is a self-insert.
You need to be honest with me and honest with yourself.
But yeah, she admits that the real reason she is struggling to write is she wants the story to feel real when she writes it, but she's not sure if anything can feel real if she hasn't lived it. And girl, you're a fiction writer. That's what fiction is. Like, I'm writing about a siren that eats bad men right now. Have I lived that? No. Oh, and if you weren't sure, like I wasn't, I guess Nora is a fellow author. We never clarified that until like this point, I think. But yeah, they talk more about criticism and reviews. Why has the backlash gotten so severe for authors when a reader doesn't agree with them or hates their book or their adaptation? It's a book, it's a movie, it's not brain surgery. We aren't saving lives. Some might argue against that, I say. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I agree with the first part of what you said, that it doesn't feel as fun now that we're getting reviews in more forms than just ratings on Goodreads and Amazon. Now people make videos and dedicate entire social media accounts to reviews, so we see it more. Calling me out. Readers are more involved and have more impact, but that also is a positive thing. One good review that goes viral can change an entire author's life in a lot of positive ways. But I think you're wrong about books just being for entertainment. I personally think books and movies can be very powerful tools. They can change minds, behaviors, thought processes, and yes, they can save lives. I do believe reading can save lives. I agree with this. Books have saved my lives many times. But yeah, they continue to talk about how readers interpret characters is subjective and confusing for authors to navigate. And then she says, and sometimes the same people who say books shouldn't be banned are the same people making a living off of saying certain books should never have been written. Okay. And then they go on to review in detail all the reasons why the book shouldn't have been written and why the author shouldn't be an author, but then their next post is rant about the banning of books again. Make it make sense. I don't think people who say like that an author bad is saying that their book should be banned. I think they're just suggesting maybe you get a different career. Make it make sense. Which is it? Ban the books or just beat the author down until they can't write anymore? And then some of them have the audacity to tag us in their rants as if we want to read about why we should quit our careers. Again, this is a self insert. Let's be so for real. I mean, yeah, I agree that reviewers shouldn't tag authors in their reviews. I personally do my reviews for the readers. I don't expect that any of the authors should watch my videos or would watch my videos. I mean, I'm a really small fish in a big pond, but still, do I critique the author sometimes? Yeah, but it's never really that serious, and it's more for the reader to make a judgment if it's something that they are interested in reading or not. And when people disagree with my reviews, I think that's completely valid. People have different opinions, and that's normal. As an author, you should expect to have bad reviews. Just don't read them. Personally, I think if you're an author, you should only be taking critiques from your editor, your publishing team, arc readers, just yeah, anyone on the writing team. If you take in the critiques from every single review out there, it's gonna be impossible to navigate. So maybe just don't read your Goodreads reviews or watch videos about your book. That's simple. But yeah, Petra reframes her question again if authors should just write what they know, and Nora responds that they are storytellers and books would be boring if authors only wrote what they knew, and I completely agree with that. But then they get the question if they would live through everything their characters have experienced. And she says, you know what? Yes, I would do anything if it meant I would be a more confident writer, a better writer. I'd live through all my stories if it meant you guys would enjoy them more, believe them, 5-star them. And yeah, I think this is basically setting up that Petra is about to live through the topic of her next book. And I was right. The life progresses. Petra's feeling good about being back online and talking about writing. And then they get the question of will Petra ever do another movie adaptation? And she says she would. She just didn't enjoy the process and how many people she had to work with and speak to. I do sometimes wonder if the result had been different and there was no fallout, would I have felt differently about the process? I guess I'll never know, and neither will readers because I'm never giving that adaptation a platform again. Not even to explain my side of things or why I texted Alistair what I texted him. Because yes, Caleb was cut from the film, and yes, I did send that text. But it was the reasoning behind me sending that text that I still grapple with. Caleb was integral to the original story. I fought for him at first when they mentioned cutting his character. I argued his necessity, but not with the fire I usually have. The truth is, I didn't trust myself enough. I thought the people in Hollywood who have made countless movies knew better than I did. At first, I did what I could, tried to articulate Caleb's importance and depth, but there was certain detachment as I advocated for him in those endless production meetings. I presented my case, explained his arc, but deep down, a part of me felt like a fraud, fighting for a character with words born from feelings of inadequacy and incompetence. Yeah, I guess Alistair just constantly brought up complaints that Caleb was a poorly written character in the book, and the negativity got to her so much that she just let Alistair lead. She assumed he knew better than her. And then they end the live, and Petra's thinking maybe that's exactly what she needed, a controlled environment to ease back into the book world. And then we go into chapter 5, where Petra is beginning her writing ritual, which is apparently starting her day with drinking a 5-hour energy shot first thing in the morning, and lately 2 of the shots. Yeah, is that not insanely bad for you to do on a regular basis? She doesn't like coffee or soda, I guess, which is why she does this, but like, have you ever heard of tea? Maybe. But yeah, she's convinced herself she can't be productive till she pounds 2 5-hour energy drinks. And she thinks soon she will add a third one later in the day. And I was like so appalled by this. I googled it, and they can cause heart palpitations, severe anxiety, increased blood pressure, and in rare cases seizures or cardiac events. And it says never to consume more than 2 bottles in a day and not recommended for long-term use. Girl, you're gonna die. As she's downing her second one, someone knocks on her door, and it's a woman with bright orange curls, and it turns out it's Louis's wife. Her name is Marigold, but she goes by Marie, and she seems super eccentric and brash. She apparently does reenactments for documentaries. Like, she's the actress that acts out what happened to people, and she rambles on about this for a long time, and honestly, like, I would read a book about that. That seems super interesting. But yeah, she notices Petra's expression, and she lets her know just to ask her to leave when she wants, not to be polite and spare her or anyone else's feelings. And she leaves, but not before letting Petra know that she's so pretty, successful, and attractive. It's everything I dreamed of being. I kind of hate you. At least she's honest, I guess. But like, why are Colleen Hoover's side characters always more interesting than the main ones? I think I said we were in chapter 5 before, but no, we're in chapter 5 now. Typo. Petra is jolted out of sleep, awoken by red and blue lights flashing outside her window, and then someone knocks on her door. And what do you know? It's the Popo. And shocker, he's hot. He's tall, broad-shouldered, and muscular, the kind of guy who looks like he spends more time in a gym than a precinct. The sight of him standing here, so authoritative and composed, makes me suddenly hyper-aware of my own appearance. I'm still in my robe, underdressed and vulnerable, a detail that makes me pull the robe tighter around my body. I have no idea why he's here, but part of me, maybe the writer in me, can't help but appreciate the timing. If I had to imagine what a hot cop Cam for my book would look like, this guy would be it.
Hello, officer.
My brain catalogs the moment, storing away the image of him for later use. This is the face you need to put on Cam, I think, a small smile tugging at the corner of my lips despite the odd circumstances. And yeah, she sees a wedding ring. Of course, he is married, just like her character Cam in the book. He introduces himself as Officer Nathaniel Saint and is here to let her know that an incident occurred down the road. So she invites him in, and of course, she mentions that he is at least 5 inches taller than her, maybe more, and I'm so sick of this. When am I gonna get a tall girl protagonist? Like, why is it always such a massive height difference? That's my own personal grievance, I know. It doesn't matter, but I just hate it. I want some tall girl representation as a girl who's 5'10". Please. I so rarely get it. But anyway, she's wondering how old he is, and we learn she is 34 and looks every bit of it. Whatever that's supposed to mean. He asks if she knows a man named Don William Putman, and she says no, while going on and on in her head about how hot he is and how he would be the perfect muse for her cop character Cam. He lets her know that apparently there was a police pursuit on this road, and that's the guy they were looking for. So he's letting her know that an officer will be nearby for the next hour or so. The guy had been to prison recently and broke parole, and I guess he head down this road to end things. I don't know, this part kind of confused me the way she wrote it. Before he leaves, he asks if she's alone, And being a smart woman, this obviously makes her uncomfortable and kind of hesitant to answer. And he notices this and says to her that he just wants her to be cautious and not let people in town know she is alone. He even tells her to wear a wedding ring when she is out and about. Weird. He gives her his business card and he tells her to call if she needs anything. He leaves and she is so inspired by his hotness that she instantly goes to write, stating Nathaniel Saint has become her character Cam. And man, if all I had to do to inspire my writing was to see a hot guy, I'd be set since I live with my boyfriend. But unfortunately, it doesn't work for me like that. On to chapter 6. The next morning, she calls to tell Nora about the whole situation, saying she won't believe what happened last night, but she glazes over the whole guy offing himself thing just to talk about how hot this cop guy was. I'm very empathetic of you, Petra. She tells her that she wrote pages and pages after he left and is going to send Nora the pages now, and Nora is shocked that it's almost 10,000 words and is happy she seems to be getting her mojo back. Before they hang up, Nora gets her to agree to do another live stream. I don't think we ever see that happen. Then Marie shows up, also babbling about how hot the cops were because I guess two of them talked to her. And it turns out that Marie saw the dead body, but she shrugs that fact off. And then they talk about Petra's books, and Marie asks her which one of hers she should check out first, and then asks her if she wants to go to town with her in the morning, saying, I'll text you before I leave just in case. She says, she grabs her pen and heads toward the door. Maybe we'll get lucky and Louis will have a heart attack, so we have an excuse to call the cops over here again. Jesus, Marie. A mild one, she says dismissively. I don't want him to die. Who would drive me to Los Angeles for all my auditions? Damn! Girl hates her husband, jeez. Marie leaves. Petra daydreams about the cop, while stroking his business card. Yeah. And she's all sad that he hasn't come by for a statement like he said a cop would. So she texts him to ask if they still need a statement. Very desperate. He instantly texts back that they were shorthanded today, but he can swing by after work to get it if it isn't too late. And she responds that if he has a few extra minutes, she has some questions about some scenes she is writing and would benefit from picking the brain of a police officer. I think she wants to pick a little bit more than his brain, if we're being honest, but he responds, I'm all yours, be there in an hour. His response comes almost immediately, and it's that first sentence that makes my breath catch. I'm all yours. It's a simple phrase, probably meant as a professional gesture, but it hits me in a way that I didn't expect. Excitement rolls through me, warm and electric, as I read it again. Oh, girl, he knew what he was doing, saying, I'm all yours, let's be for real. But yeah, she goes to change for apparently the 4th time that day since she has been expecting to see him. The knowledge that Cam is now inspired by Detective Nathaniel Saint has done wonders for my confidence in this story. It helps minimize the nagging fear I always have that readers will call my work unrealistic. How could it be unrealistic if I'm writing Rhea's reactions to Cam based on my own reactions to Detective Saint? I've never felt more in tune with my character, and it's all because of him. I don't know, maybe because you know literally nothing about this man other than the fact that you think he's hot and that he's a cop. He's gonna be a really flat character if all you can write about is his looks. He shows up not in his uniform and instead looking effortlessly rugged in a t-shirt and jeans, and he keeps sending her flirty smiles, and she thinks about how she would never ever flirt with a married man, but her character Rhea would, so she should too for research for her book. That makes it all okay, right? And guys, if there's anything I hate more in a book, it's the cheating trope. I hate it so much. I got so angry reading this book. She asks him if he goes by Nathaniel or Nate, and he says he actually goes by Saint. Because of course he does. I for one would never be into a cop that goes by Saint, but then again, I'd never be into a cop, so.
Fuck the police.
But he tells her he doesn't actually need a statement anymore since they got the incident on dash and body cam. So she's like, why'd you still come over then? And he's like, well, you said you needed to pick my brain, but he agreed to come over before she said she wanted to pick his it rains, so like dude's just trying to get in her pants, let's be for real. But yeah, he confesses he couldn't sleep last night, not because of the whole incident that happened, but because he Googled her and watched all her TikToks. And he asks if she is writing about a cop, and she says yes, she has been for a year and a half. What kind of book is it? Romance? I nod. Romantic suspense. A love triangle. And the married cop is part of that triangle because he falls for a witness. It gets messy. He waits quietly for me to finish. I don't know anything about cops or love triangles, apparently. Not sure I can answer questions about a love triangle. I've never been in one, but anything else is fair game. His voice is low and curious, like he's genuinely interested in my answer. He keeps glancing at his wedding ring as she tells him the book is about this married cop, Cam, who gets in a love triangle with Rhea and his wife. I wouldn't call that a love triangle, I would call that cheating, but Cam is the cop, I reply, feeling a strange thrill at the fact he's asking so many questions. Rhea is the female protagonist. And who is the third? Cam's wife. Cam is the one having the affair, but Rhea feels guilty because she doesn't want to be the other woman. But she's just too intrigued by him. Are there specific things that happen to Ray in the book that you've never experienced? His voice is steady, but his question dwells thick and heavy. Or are you still outlining? Yeah, girl, I would be so icked out if I was her, because if he's married and flirting like this, that's just gross. But I guess she is into married men. They keep talking about the book, and her characters keeps getting more flirty and heated, and she's talking about how she doesn't know how to write Rhea's reaction the first time Cam kisses her, if she should be angry because he's married or happy because she wanted it to happen. And Saint responds with, that does sound like something you would have to experience before you can nail the emotions, and bites his lip. But then his wife calls, but instead of answering it, he tosses his phone and kisses Petra. I hate this. I hate this. His phone is still buzzing away on the counter, but all I can think about is the way he chose this kiss over answering her call. I was right, at least about that feeling. Rhea would feel triumphant, like she'd won something she didn't even know she was fighting for. But the triumph comes with the heavy side of guilt, and that feeling starts to creep in almost as quickly. I can't ignore the fact that his phone is buzzing because his wife is calling. His literal wife. Triumphant like she won something? As if she's in a competition with his wife that doesn't even know about her. That's so grimy. Ew. Anyway, they stop kissing, and dude just leaves and drives away without a word. I guess because that's what she told him happens in her book. I still think that's freaking weird, but you do you. Despite the guilt I feel for the betrayal, I'm somehow smiling because it doesn't feel like I've done anything wrong. It's research, right? How do you feel guilty but then also feel like you didn't do anything wrong? The literal definition of guilt means a feeling of deserving blame for offenses. You can't have one without the other. That just doesn't work that way. I digress, though. We're going into chapter 7. Marie shows up unannounced, and Petra instantly spills about the kiss. She sips from her Yeti cup, a long, constant sip. Well, good for you. I've been married to Louis since I was 17. It wasn't until I was in my 50s that I realized my lips had never touched another man's, and likely never would at that point because I was in my 50s and Louis was healthy as an ox. And to be honest, it made me kind of sad, because what if Louis is a terrible kisser? What if we aren't even doing it right? How would we know when we only experienced each other? She's staring off into the distance, focused on nothing in particular. Now my youth is gone, and the thought of Louis putting his tongue in my mouth makes me want to walk right out there to the spot where that young man ended his life the other night and do the exact same thing. Jesus Christ. Yeah, she fucking hates her husband. Like, oh my god, that's crazy. I guess it's been 2 days since the kiss, and she wrote a ton right after that, but the energy from it is kind of fizzling out. So she needs another hit from her muse again. She's thinking about how she won't tell anyone else about the kiss, not even Nora, because she would hate for it to taint Nora's image of her. And then we get this line. I'm more worried about how other people would feel about my actions than how I feel. Is this really any different from two actors kissing for the camera? It's art. Girl, if someone kissed my man and told me it was for art, let's just say a casket or two might be needed. I'm getting heated, guys. I'm getting heated. Hear that, monster? I'm getting heated. I don't know if you could see that side eye she just threw me. She goes on to think about how she's struggling to write her character's relationship since she has never had feelings for a married man and doesn't know what it feels like. But my thing is, if you're having so much trouble writing about it, maybe just write about something else. Why does she even have to make it an affair? Like, write it in a different way then. But instead of doing that, she texts Mr. Saint that she has another research question, and he eventually texts her back that he is more than happy to help, and they have this text exchange. Petra, yeah, I guess you could say that. After you left the other night, I wrote several chapters, but today I'm stuck. Saint, what's tripping you up? Petra, I'm not sure I know how it feels to be the other woman. I have no idea how to describe things between Cam and Rhea because I have no idea how often she would be thinking about his wife or the future of their relationship when they're together. Saint. Are Cam and Rhea in love? Petra. Yes, very much in love. Saint. So you're wondering how two people who are in love would navigate a normal night together when one of those characters is married? Petra. Yes, exactly that. Saint, it sounds like you would need to experience that firsthand. Research can only go so far, I'm assuming. Petra, experience has definitely proven helpful in the recent past. Saint, it would be rude of me not to help you. I can be there in an hour. Petra, I would appreciate that. Ew. She's preparing for him to come over, changes her outfits 3 times again, and is cleaning up as much as she can. When he gets there, they start kissing, and he says he can only stay an hour, and he wishes he could stay all night. I blink, pulling back slightly, my mind trying to catch up to what's happening. Is he in character right now? The way that he's kissing me, the way he's speaking, it's as if he's channeling Cam, but I don't know if that's intentional or if I'm projecting. The line between Saint and Cam is becoming increasingly muddled, and I'm starting to wonder if he's doing it on purpose. This kiss, this greeting, feels like something Cam would do at this point in the story. But with Saint, under normal circumstances, I doubt it, but in this moment, nothing feels normal. How do you know if that's something Saint would do? You don't know this dude. Then they start referring to each other as her characters, Rhea and Cam, and I actively gagged reading this part. It just gave me so much secondhand embarrassment. I don't know. Role playing like this, I'm not yucking anyone's yum, but it makes me cringe. But yeah, they make out, and he asks about the character Cam, which makes her wonder if he is kissing her as Cam or Saint. And he also asks about Rhea and if anything happens to her in the book that Cam can't protect her from, and she says she loses her best friend. There's an attempted kidnapping, a car chase, and someone breaks into her house. And I swear to God, if all those things happen in this book, I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna throw my Kindle across the room, I swear. He mentions that she seems almost embarrassed to talk about her story and her writing, and he feels like he kind of knows her after watching all her videos, and that the girl standing in front of him is not the girl in those videos because that girl would be proud to talk about her writing, and she gets upset by this and says she liked it better pretending he had no idea about who she was or her movie controversy. And he says he understands it can't be easy having people pick her words apart and her apart online, and asks if she's okay, which makes her tear up, and she admits she hasn't been able to write anything meaningful until he kissed her, and she doesn't feel like she is just writing to make herself happy anymore, that she has everyone's opinions coming at her. But I'm just not the type to try and change people's minds. If me defending myself will require me to speak ill of someone else, I'd rather just take the loss. Saint is staring at me with what looks like admiration. There you are, he whispers, gently tucking my hair behind my ears. His words, simple yet profound, land with an unexpected weight, cutting through years of self-doubt and poisoned thoughts. I want you to write, he says, and I want you to publish. I know I'm just one person, but I want to read everything you've written and everything you haven't written, so even if you're only writing for you and me, let that be enough to finish at least one more book. And then, of course, they kiss, and she thinks about how he truly sees her beyond the initial physical attraction. I feel like that's saying a lot since they've literally known each other for like 5 minutes, but he then surprises her by asking if he can read some of her book, and she agrees, and they start kissing again when his phone rings. So he goes outside to take the call. After he ends it, he comes in, grabs his uniform, and leaves again without another word. Yeah, again, she's thrown off and confused if he left like that because he's acting like him or if he's being himself. At least her writing block is gone and she goes to write. We are on to chapter 8, and the next day she gets a text from Saint asking what she is doing that night, and he asks her to join him at a restaurant in the next town over since they have to be all sly and on the DL. And before meeting him, she decides to stop at Marie's place to let her know where she is. She says she's going to a work meeting and wants someone to know where she is. And Marie asks who it's with, and she admits it's Saint. That's all that scene was for. And then she gets to the restaurant and she's all nervous to go inside. She is also nervous to get recognized, but she still goes in and meets him at the bar. He's in character because he asks her how her court case went because her character Rhea is a lawyer. I'm sorry. Again, this role play thing is just making me cringe so hard. Yeah, she's kind of like fumbling on her words, trying to act as Rhea, and at one point he tells her not to overthink it or feel guilty, and tells her that her actions aren't a factor in his marriage. He made the choice to be there. Ew. But yeah, he admits he feels bad, but his marriage is complicated. But that's for me to figure out. When I'm with you, I just convince myself I'm doing a good deed, helping you with research. Every good writer needs to research. He washes away a trace of guilt on his face with a slow grin. Who am I to deny you your muse? Literally barf. But yeah, she writes down a title idea that she just got due to the situation, Edge of Forbidden. When she notices Saint gets rigid when a couple walks into the place, she asks what's wrong, but he says it's a false alarm, and he asks if they can get the food to go so no one will see them eating together. Again, ew. But she assumes just this is him also acting as Cam, because this is exactly how she told him the scene in her book would go. And they go to the car to eat. When we get this tidbit, turns out we both like salty ketchup. So Saint opened several packets and poured salt directly onto the ketchup, and we're taking turns dipping fries into it, making small talk as Cam and Rhea. It has actually been fun. I've never seen him so at ease. I'm sorry, salty ketchup. You're emptying multiple packets of salt into the ketchup. I've literally never heard of anyone doing this before, and if you do, I'm concerned about your cholesterol, but you do you, I guess. But yeah, she asks him to tell her something real, like as Saint, and he tells her he has a brother who lost his arm 5 years ago, standing guard next to an armored car that exploded. Then they make out after this revelation. He seems to get nervous about being seen and says they should go. And we go to chapter 9. Nora is reading this line that Petra texted her from the book that she wrote last night, and she gets super excited over it. The line is, "The man who always seems to be running from something even when he's standing still." Nora practically yells the line back at me. "Petra, this is so good. I am so invested in the story, and you sent me one chapter? When will you have more?" "I have over 10 chapters. I say 46,000 words." So yeah, she sends over those 10 chapters, and she apparently usually rereads it herself when she has someone peer reviewing it. So she gets ready on her laptop to start reading it after she hangs out with Nora. But as she opens her laptop, she sees a bunch of text asking if she is okay from Marie because she never checked in last night like she said she would. That doesn't also really go anywhere. But yeah, she then is writing and falls asleep when she is again awoken by a very unsettled feeling. She states that it's too dark, too silent, and then she sees a shadow in her bedroom doorway, which lunges at her, grabs her ankle, and drags her across the bed. She has a thought where she wonders if this is Saint. So she calls out that if it is him to please stop. Instead, the figure fully yanks her off the bed and drags her across the floor. And she's thinking about how she actually hopes it's Saint because the alternative of not knowing who it is somehow worse. And as she's dragged, she notices all the appliances are off, so the power must have been cut, and that's why it's so dark. She keeps begging the mystery man, saying, Saint, please don't. And a voice says, don't fucking move. And she thinks it doesn't sound like Saint. My breath leaves me in a sharp, panicked gasp, and the shock of it makes everything feel more surreal. Is this someone else entirely? Am I actually in real danger? Yeah, because you're only in danger if it's not Saint. If it's Saint, this is okay? Okay, sure. Yeah, she ends up tied to a chair with her mouth duct taped. She goes, this is real. This is actually happening. There's no way Saint would let this game go this far. I tell myself, trying to cling to some shred of hope. He wouldn't let this happen. He wouldn't let me be in this much pain. For the first time since I woke up just a few minutes ago, the cold realization sinks in. I might not make it out of this. For the first time, I truly feel like my life is in danger. Again, like now you feel like your life's in danger, not when you were dragged across the room by some mystery figure.
I'm concerned.
At this point, I was so confused why she was trying to convince herself this was Saint, as if it would make it better. She thinks maybe he's doing it for her writing, and I was like, yeah, like she mentioned something similar happening to Raya in her book, but it's not done by the character Saint has been pretending to be, so I honestly didn't think it was him. And I thought even if it was him and he was reenacting the scene that she mentioned, I mean, it's without her consent, so it would still be completely not okay. But yeah, the mystery guy, as she's tied up, then sounds like he's searching for something. He's slamming cabinets and drawers, and then he suddenly opens the front door and walks out for a while. She thinks he seems not to be coming back, so she starts trying to make like break free and grab her phone, and she does end up getting the phone in her hands and is about to dial 911 when she hears footsteps walking back in, and this time it really is Saint who frees her, but she doesn't know whether or not to trust him. My mind is spinning. I have so many questions, but none of them make sense right now. All I know is that he's here, that he came back, and that somehow I'm still not safe. There's no reason he would show up here at this time of night. None at all. Please tell me what happened, he says. He did this. I know he did. There's no other explanation. No one else would know where I am. No one else would know how to get in, how to cut the power. Only someone like a cop would know these things. Really? No one else would know how to cut the power? She yells at him to stop pretending and like shoves him multiple times in anger. And she's yelling at him like, how could you think I would want this? And she eventually shoves him out of her bedroom and locks herself in the bathroom, undresses and takes a scalding hot shower. Yeah, basically she's having a huge panic attack, completely warranted. And we go into chapter 10. The power comes back on, and she says, rather than calm me, it only makes things worse. The fact that the power is back on, just like that, proves one thing. Saint was the one who turned it off in the first place. He was the one in control the entire time. He's the reason I was left in the dark, terrified, alone. And at this point, I was like, I mean, no, that doesn't really prove that he was the one who turned the power off. Like just because he turned back on. But no, turns out it was him. He comes back and tries to calm her and tells her he is so sorry that he thought, and she cuts him off with, you thought I wanted you to attack me? Are you out of your fucking mind? I yank the shower curtain shut, and then I close my eyes trying to block out the confusion, the whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Did I think he'd never cross this line? Or did I ask him to do this? My thoughts scatter in all directions as I search for some logical explanation, a reason why Saint would take things this far. I replay every conversation, every look, every word exchanged between us, which is not much, to be honest. Desperately trying to make sense of the situation, but no matter how hard I try, I can't find anything that justifies this. No, I didn't. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask him to break into my cabin in the middle of the night, to terrify me, to tie me to a chair. All I did was tell him about the book, share the inner workings of my writing process. It wasn't an invitation to scare the living shit out of me. It wasn't supposed to be an open door for him to step into my life and confuse me so badly that I thought I was about to fucking die. But here we are, and I can't help but wonder, did he assume I wanted this? Did he think I was asking for this? For him to take over my life, my space, my thoughts? Did I confuse him? I don't even know what to think anymore. I'm so wrapped up in the emotions of everything since he walked into my life and the intensity of what's been happening that I don't trust myself to make sense of any of it. Do I even have the right to be angry at him for doing this? Yes. The thought stabs at me, sharp and cruel. I hate that I'm questioning myself, hate that I'm doubting my own feelings, but the truth is, I don't know if I have the right to be angry. Somewhere deep inside, a small, shameful part of me wonders if this is what I hoped for. If on some subconscious level I craved this chaotic, dark thrill. Did I subconsciously want this to happen? The question burns through me, leaving a trail of guilt and confusion in its wake. I don't want to believe that I did. I don't want to think that I somehow invited this madness into my life. But the doubt is there, clinging in the corners of my mind, whispering that maybe, just maybe, I'm responsible for all of this. Sorry. How? In any of the conversations that we've heard between the two of them, did he get the impression that she wanted him to do this? And how she blaming herself for that? I'm honestly so freaking confused by this. But yeah, he's holding her, she's letting him, thinking maybe I did make him think that I wanted this. And he says, "When you told me about your book," St. begins, his voice softer than I've ever heard it, "I thought you were asking me to." I shake my head quickly, interrupting him before he can finish. "I know," I whisper, my voice hoarse from crying. I'm too exhausted, too emotionally drained to rehash every detail of what happened. "I know," I say again, because in a way, I do know. I did ask for something. I just didn't know it would unfold like this. First of all, dude, are you fucking daft? You're allegedly a cop, and you didn't think to clarify that it was consensual before breaking into someone's house, dragging them off their bed, and tying them up? What the fuck am I reading, guys? She then kind of gets over it and she tells him, if you're going to do something like that from now on, ask her first. Like, uh, why are you not kicking him out of the cabin? Are you insane? The answer is yes, we will learn. But I was so baffled at this point. Also, if he was just trying to role play this thing, why did it seem like he was searching for something when she was tied up? And then why did he leave for a while? And then why did he come back pretending like he knew nothing of the situation? She doesn't question this at all, though. He asks if she wants him to leave, and she's thinking she should tell him to, but she can't bring herself to say the words. He never wanted to scare me. He just misunderstood, like I did. He was just trying to help me, to push me into a feeling I've never experienced before. "I'm sorry," he says, his voice thick with sincerity. "Truly, that night, I thought you were going into detail about what happens to Rhea because it was your way of, I don't know, giving me instructions." She goes, "I was terrified of him a few minutes ago. It wasn't him I was scared of. It was the character he was playing. The situation we both created, however unintentionally. I can't fault him for that, not entirely." Girl, go to therapy. What do you mean the situation you both created? How are you blaming yourself for any of this? I'm baffled, guys. I'm baffled. She lets him stay. As long as they don't pretend to be their characters anymore that night. As she's telling him this, she realizes now that she's fully naked in the shower with him and is wondering how to get out of this without his eyes fully being on her. When he notices this discomfort and hands her a towel so he can notice her discomfort now, but not when she was screaming for him to stop when he was dragging her across the room and tying her to a chair. Right, okay. Yeah, so since Saint went in the shower with his clothes on, he's like standing there with a soaking wet shirt looking like a fucking lost puppy, not knowing what to do with himself. When she hands him a towel and has this thought, there's something oddly satisfying about knowing he's reliant on me right now, that he can't leave before his clothes are dry. In a strange way, it gives me a sense of power. Again, I think there's some things here that maybe we should unpack with a therapist, Petra, but okay. But yeah, she's all giddy that he has to stay longer than he planned on, despite what just happened, and they sit down together while he makes her tea. Like everything's just fine and dandy. She pops his Xanax and ogles him while he makes the tea without his shirt on, thinking she needs to rewrite how she described his arms in the book now that she knows what astounding strength they have. Yeah, and I'm flabbergasted. How are we just moving on from the situation so quickly? Oh, and then she says she fought with everything she had earlier and it didn't even faze him, so it's comforting to know that he could use that same strength to protect her. If it was me, I'd be more terrified knowing he can use that strength against me like he literally just did. But I guess she's a half glass full kind of girl. Yeah, also would not accept tea from a man who just tied me to a chair, but she willingly drinks it. And then he lifts her onto the counter and is rubbing the red marks on her wrist from the rope that he tied around her. And he asks if he hurt her. And she replies that she's fine. Hello, if he left marks, then yeah, he hurt her. I did not enjoy what Saint did tonight, but I do appreciate that he was trying to give me the experience he thought I was asking for in a safe way. Safe where? Aside from being tied up, I was never in any actual danger. He just thought I wanted to feel like I was. What's strange is that it feels as if he did those things in a book and not in my real life. We forgive our characters for much worse than we'd forgive our friends and lovers for, and I feel like I'm lending him the forgiveness I'd lend a character rather than an actual person in my life. This entire night has been surreal, but I feel his remorse and I can accept it, and I can take what happened and I can use it. I will definitely be using it. Knowing how Rhea is feeling in that moment has given me a whole new level of respect for her fear, for the actual pain she endures. I just can't, guys. Like, why? Why are we pretending there was ever any hint that she wanted him to do this? Because from what I have read so far, there wasn't. Vaguely describing what happens to Rhea in her book was not her subtly asking him to break into her house, drag her across the floor, and tie her up. Like, that was not a green light to do that. I know I've said it 1,000 times now, but I'm just stunned by her brushing this off so easily. Can you guess what happens next? Yep, they get it on. I can't help but stare at his wedding ring as his hand moves to cup my breast. Are my breasts prettier than his wife's? Am I prettier than his wife? Therapy. Now. I'm actually disgusted. Hooking up with a married man is bad enough on its own. Then creating some kind of competition between her and yourself that she's not even aware of, that's just twisted, dude. That's gross. Petra, you're a bad person. Then they start doing the deed, and he tells her, just say stop if you want me to stop, okay? Yeah, like, that worked so well before.
I think he's lying.
Chapter 11. She wakes up to Saint leaving without a word, as he always does, but she decides to tail his ass because she wants to know him better. Y'all are crazy. Yeah, she's hoping to catch a glimpse of his wife, but instead he pulls off onto a county road because he obviously saw her and he waves for her to pull over. And as she does, he pulls her out of the car and sets her on the hood of her car and tells her she better stop digging, that she already knows he is married and thought they had an agreement. She says she just wanted to see where he goes when he isn't with her. And he goes, it's none of your business. Yup, girl, he's basically telling you, like, you're a mistress, this is your place, don't follow me. But then she asks him, why is he cheating on his wife with her then? And his response is, because you asked me to.
Huh?
Good to know that if someone just asks you to cheat on your wife, you'll do it. That's completely a normal reaction. She asks if he feels guilty because she does, and his response is that he'll stop coming over then. My breath hitches. He sees the reaction in my eyes. His gaze softens, a fleeting moment of something akin to understanding or perhaps pity. He leans in again, closer than before, his voice dropping to a near whisper. I'm a good husband outside of what she doesn't know, but if you are starting to question doing the things she doesn't know we're doing, then maybe we should stop doing those things. Yeah, a good husband outside of what she doesn't know. Excuse me? And this is the second time I'm going through it, and it's still making my blood boil just as much as it did the first time. I'm just imagining if my partner said some bullshit like this, and it's pissing me off. But yeah, things start to get heated, and her on top of her hood. He's touching her as he says his wife deserves better. I'm gonna barf reading this, but I'm doing it so you don't have to. They're just doing stuff out in the open, and after she finishes, she asks him if he will tell his wife where he was all night. He sighs a deep, heavy sound. He pushes off the car, creating a small distance between us. Stop asking questions about her. I don't like thinking about her when I'm with you. Do you like thinking about me when you're with her? I ask, my voice small, vulnerable. He looks away, staring out into the middle distance, his jaw tight. No, but I do it anyway, and it doesn't feel good to feel good about someone who isn't my wife. Nasty. Anyway, he gets up, tells her not to follow him, that she won't like what she finds if she does, and he leaves. And we go into chapter 12. So she wrote for 2 days straight and didn't hear from him at all. And she gets a knock on her door, thinking it's him, but no, it's Shepard. Who is Shepard, you may ask? Her husband. Yeah, I know, guys, I know. We thought she was just, the mistress in his marriage, but no, she is also cheating on her own man. Oh, and the cherry on top. She has 2 little girls. Just as I'm turning toward my bedroom to make sure nothing of Saint's was left behind, Chloe cups her little hands around her eyes and presses her face against the window. Mommy, she squeals, her voice muffled by the glass but unmistakable in its excitement. She backs away from the window, pointing inside at me, her grin wide and full of joy. Daddy, I see Mommy. So she's frantically looking around her house, trying to get rid of any trace that she's been with another man. Yeah, and we learned that her 2 daughters are 4 and 5. Their tiny hands clutch at my nightgown, their faces pressed against my legs, and for a moment the guilt of everything I've done hits me with full force. These weeks I spent at the lake are honestly the toughest weeks of the year for me, being away from them. I love my daughters more than anything, and yet here I am, standing in the aftermath of these days and nights where I've pretended I'm not their mother, where I've pretended I'm not Shepard's wife. Having these getaways allows me to write my books much faster so I can spend more time with my girls when I'm at home, but I've never had the experience that I've had this time. I've always just gone away and worked, truly worked. I've never gone away and done something so horrid. It could destroy my family, destroy my kids. So you're telling me Colleen Hoover's great idea of the plot twist is that she's also married and has kids? No, I think that just makes her a bigger piece of shit, honestly. And honestly, I was wondering while I was reading this how Colleen's husband would feel reading this. And I know she asked her readers not to make any connections between her and this book, but it's pretty hard when Petra is just a self-insert of Colleen.
It's maybe hitting a little too close to home.
Now, watching them climb onto the chairs to reach the counter, their little faces full of concentration as they pull items from the bags, I feel a pang of guilt so sharp it's almost physical. I should be better than this. I should be a better mother, a better wife. I shouldn't be living this double life, sneaking moments with a man who isn't my husband. I mean, you think? She shoots Saint an urgent text telling him not to come over today no matter what, and he asks if everything is okay, and thinking that even though she never told him that she was married with kids, that he won't be upset and he'll understand because he's married too. And so she casually replies, my husband and kids showed up, and then she deletes all her texts with him, and we go into chapter 13. Her husband is cooking her dinner while she's doing a puzzle with her kids and trying not to freak out, but she is internally. I've been playing the part for years, slipping in and out of roles and characters like they were costumes I could change at will. The serene, engaged mother, the supportive, loving wife, the business-minded public speaker. I pretend to be all the things I'm supposed to be when I need to be them while trying not to live completely in my head. I'm used to it. I've been this way my whole life. I dress the part for every other aspect of my life, but I'm the most me in the silence of my mind. But today, it feels less like I'm wearing a costume and more like I've been shoved into a suffocating straitjacket. Yeah, all that makes the cheating okay, I guess. Then, a car pulls into the driveway, which Shepard notices, and she's praying. It isn't Saint. And this is the part where I realized that his name is Saint and her husband's name is Shepard. And aren't those both like thing in the Bible? I don't know. I'm not religious, but let me know if it's like a double entendre or something, giving them those names. It's not important, but yeah, it's Saint that pulled up. And Shepard lets her know that someone's here and asks if she knows who that is, and she's just like fully freaking out and tells Shepard she has no idea. But then he asks, why would a cop be here? And Saint, I presume, is just fucking with her because he's like, sorry to bother you folks, but I noticed the car here didn't have visitor tags, which is not even a thing. He lies and says it's a county ordinance that was implemented this month. And Shepard goes, did you know this? Pet? His nickname for her is Pet?
Do I look like a cat to you, boy?
That might be the biggest crime of all in this book, I'm not gonna lie. I can feel Saint's eyes on me, drilling into me with an intensity that makes it hard to breathe. I feel pinned to the door frame by Shepard's nickname for me being spoken in front of Saint. Pet. Also, I don't think he ever calls her Pet again in the book, so I think she just wanted to gross me out. But yeah, she lies and says, oh yeah, it's a new law I forgot to tell you about. And Shepard asks Saint if he can just let it slide this one time because he'll be gone in the morning. And Saint's like, sure, but I'll be back in the morning to make sure the car is gone. And Petra takes this as a subtle threat. This isn't about Shepard's car, it's about control. It's letting me know that he's not done, that this isn't over, and that I'm still firmly within his grasp. Or maybe he just wants me to know he's angry that I failed to mention I have a husband. The thought is a bitter, unwelcome taste in my mouth. Yeah, and then she again wonders if he's being himself or Cam, and she can't tell if he's actually jealous and possessive or he's just playing the role. And then the cherry on top of the situation is Marie shows up. Marie, knowing about her and Saint, looks a little taken aback to see her with a husband and kids, but then Marie and Saint both just leave, and Shepard just notes that it was weird and wonders why it's suddenly getting so strict around here. And then we go into chapter 14. So the rest of the night until they tuck the girls into bed goes by without incident, and we learn that her and Shepard argue more now that they have money issues. He took a lower paying position when she started getting successful, and now he makes subtle jabs at her that he regrets it, and they're awkwardly sitting on the couch together while she stews over her guilt. I've never cheated on Shepard before. I've never even had the urge. For years, our marriage felt solid, built on a foundation of shared history, quiet companionship, and a love that, while perhaps not fiery, felt steady and true. We've had our ups and downs, of course, the usual ebb and flow of any long-term relationship, money stresses, parenting disagreements, the natural drift of routine. But I never, ever thought I'd be the type to have an affair, to cross that line. It's the kind of thing that happens to other people in other relationships, not mine. I thought I was better than that, stronger, more grounded, but here I am sinking under the devastating consequences of my own choices. Choices I never imagined I'd make, never dreamed I was capable of. And it was so easy. Too easy. I barely thought of him, of Shepard, in those moments. It was like when Saint was around, when his intensity filled the space, Shepard was out of sight, out of mind. Why? Why was it so simple to betray the man I vowed to cherish? The man sitting just inches from me, oblivious? She goes on to note that he's really supportive when she's successful, but when she's not, he's a dick, like with this whole canceled situation. And okay, yeah, that sucks. Divorce him then. Don't cheat. But yeah, they get into a fight over money because he asks her to look over some finance stuff, and she says she can't focus on that while she's in the writing headspace, and that she's trying to solve their money issues by writing, and that she was in the flow until he showed up, which he obviously takes poorly. She tells him that he knew she would be home the next weekend for 2 days for Chloe, their daughter's birthday party, so she doesn't get why he thought it was a good idea to come interrupt 2 more days of her writing. He tells her that the girls missed her, and he's like, sorry you have people who love you. And she's like, that's not fair. Writing is a weird beast, and you know I work best when I have stretches of solitude. I love you, and I love my girls, but it's like you can't even get through a week without needing me to give you a reprieve. When do I get my reprieve? How many episodes of Love Island have you watched since you've been here? To be fair, I mean, Love Island's a great show. You can't tell me you've actually spent all day, every day writing. I've been working, watching the girls, all while trying to figure out how to get our finances in order for our meeting with the accountant. Sorry if I can't understand how a vacation in a... He looks around. You can't even call this a cabin. A vacation in a dream home can in any way be torture. All I ask is for you to look at some numbers. My bad, I'll do it myself. Yeah, she gets pissed that he's implying that she hasn't been working at all and that he doesn't understand all the pressure and the noise since the whole movie fiasco. And he responds that she gets to write stories for a living while he deals with spreadsheets. And yeah, this is a dick thing to say. Like, writing is definitely not easy, and being a published writer is even more difficult. And he is just downgrading all her hard work. That's shitty. Does that excuse the cheating, though? No. He tells her that one day of them being here isn't going to make or break her book, which, yeah, that's a fair point. But then he ruins it by saying she's kind of being a bitch, which I guess he's never called her a bitch before. But then he apologizes and said he's just stressed about money and he just needs a little help from her looking over expenses. And she kind of accepts this apology and then thinks about how when she is writing, she gets so into it, she almost becomes her character. Some call it method writing, and I suppose I can blame my actions on that. Blame it on the fact that I let myself get too deep into the story this time. I let the characters take over, let the narrative consume me, and for a while it felt like I wasn't even in control anymore. But it doesn't excuse what I've done. It doesn't change the cold, hard fact that I made a choice, that I crossed a line I can never uncross. Yeah, definitely doesn't excuse the cheating, but she is just hoping that he never finds out, because if the cheating wasn't bad enough, she is just gonna lie forever. He says he just didn't expect her not to be happy when him and the kids showed up, but he understands he pulled her out of her groove, and he actually gives this very nice apology. You've always been way too hard on yourself, he says, shaking his head, a fond exasperation in his tone. But it works out. Every time you come here, you leave with the bones of a brand new book. It's your magic place. I believe in you, and I'm sorry I snapped at you. It's not fair of me to show up and put burdens on you. But Petra thinks about how he just still doesn't understand all the blood, sweat, and tears that go into writing a book. That he thinks these getaways are just a vacation still, and how no one, unless they have written a book themselves, understands how draining it can be and how hard it is when people pick apart your writing, which is all valid points, but she said herself that no one would understand unless they wrote a book themselves, so I don't think she can expect her husband, who she knew wasn't a writer, to fully grasp the whole process. But basically, she accepts this apology. Shepard starts to get intimate with her, but she can only think about Saint and the things that she did with him on the same couch. He asks her to join him in bed after he showers, expecting, some booty, and she agrees. But as soon as she hears the shower turn on, she goes outside to call Saint. She asks him what the fuck he was doing. He says, "You're married," and she responds that, "You are too." But he hits her with the fact that, well, he never lied about it. And this is the part where I'm like, okay, we're 64% through, and this has not read like a thriller at all, besides maybe that one scene of him tying her up, but then that just ends up being a misunderstanding, and it's ended up basically just being foreplay for them, so I wouldn't count that. But yeah, he then asks her if he's going to sleep with Shepard tonight, and she's like, "What do you think? He's my husband." And he jokes, "So that's a no?" He isn't mad at all, not really. This is part of the game to him, a meticulously crafted performance. He's enjoying this, enjoying my torment, my confusion. And then, with a jolt of ice-cold clarity, a chilling realization that pierces through the fog of my anger, I realize what he's doing. Why he showed up here today to meet Shepard, why he played up the stern, unyielding officer. He's embodying the very things I wanted Cam to be: controlling, possessive, jealous. He's playing the role I created for him in Rhea's story, the role of Cam, the obsessive, dangerous lover. And in this moment, consumed by a confusing, terrifying mixture of pure terror and perverse fascination, I hate him for it. And I love him for it. You're insane. Then he asks her if she wants them to stop this whole game role-playing situation, and she admits that she doesn't. And he's like, okay, on one condition, that when you do the deed with your husband tonight, you get on top and pretend that it's me. And then he hangs up, and this turns her on because she's fucked up. And we go to chapter 15. So, of course, she does exactly what Saint asked and pretends it's him as she gets it on with her husband. And as she's coming to a finale, let's say, she opens her eyes and sees Saint standing outside her window, staring at her. Yeah, she is scared, but ultimately just really turned on, and she stares at him as she continues with her husband, which is actually so disgusting considering this is her husband that she is using to play this weird twisted game with Saint. Like, the cheating, one thing, but then using him in this weird game, unforgivable. Well, I mean, the cheating was unforgivable to me, but what even is this book about? Because at this point, it's just smut. Straight up smut. With the cheating trope, which I would never willingly read. I thought that I was getting a thriller with a light romance, but no. Anyway, this scene continues on for way too long. Her sleeping with Shepard but staring at Saint. And honestly, I just skimmed the rest of the chapter because it was pissing me off. So yeah, they finally finish the act. Saint disappears, and suddenly she wants to cry. This is so fucked up. This was probably the most fucked up thing I've ever done in my entire life, crossing so many lines. But what's worse is the undeniable truth gnawing at me, one I can't ignore no matter how hard I try to suppress it. I would do it all over again if given the chance. It felt that good, that dangerously, thrillingly good.
Jail.
Poor Shepard, completely oblivious to what just happened, thinks that the fornication was just so mind-blowing because of how much she seemed to miss him. His words, not mine. And they go to sleep as she continues to think about Saint, and we go into chapter 16. So she says goodbye to her daughters and her husband. Maybe last night was the inspiration you needed to finally kickstart things again, he adds with a smile, his eyes twinkling with a hopeful optimism that feels completely out of place. This is Shepard, by the way. He has no idea. He doesn't know how sickeningly right he is, but for all the wrong reasons. Last night did bring me inspiration, just not the kind he's imagining, not the kind that would ever see the light of day in a book for general consumption. Hey! So that's insane. But yeah, her husband leaves with the kids and she immediately goes to call Saint, but bro's just standing right in front of her in her doorway in her house. She's wondering how he got inside because she swears she locked the doors, but doesn't ask, just walks past him as he lets her in, and he locks the door behind them and immediately pushes her up against the door and starts roughly kissing her, and she's all into it despite knowing that she shouldn't be. And then he says, "Get in the shower and wash him off." Ugh. Okay, she says, "Fuck you," but he grabs her and he drags her into the bathroom, and yeah, this whole thing just turns into more smut. I don't care. This is a false advertisement. I was expecting a thriller, so I'm skipping to the next chapter. And we go to chapter 17. They're on a boat now, and she's like objecting the hell out of him because he's shirtless. And she asks him if he regrets the affair. "I wish it wasn't an affair, Petra," he says, his voice low, tinged with a quiet regret that surprises me. "But no, I don't regret being with you, not for a second." Really? Cause like last night it seemed like the affair part was really doing things for you. So do you really wish it wasn't an affair? I don't know. But yeah, his response makes her think he wishes there was something more, which makes her think of his wife, and she feels all validated because she feels like she's won something over her by him saying this. Gross. She asks if he has kids, and when he doesn't answer, she's like, "Well, you know that I have kids." He's like, "Well, I didn't ask about your family. They just showed up, so that's different." But after a bit, he opens up and tells her how him and his wife tried for years. They tried IVF, they had multiple miscarriages, but ultimately it turns out after some tests that he's the one who can't have kids, and his wife started to resent him, and they separated 6 months ago. And she's thrown off, wondering why he didn't tell her any of this because, she's been sleeping with a committed man. And he says, "I still wear my wedding ring. I still feel married. Where in the space between you needing a muse who was a married man and me explaining my messy break could I fit all that in? Besides, you needed the full experience, Petra," he says, "and I've had fun with it. The guilt, the secrecy, the forbidden thrill, you needed to feel it all to live it so you could feel better about your writing, to get the fuel you needed for Rhea." Or Raya. I don't know how you say that, sorry. I know I keep saying it different ways. Yeah, she asks if he wants the marriage to work, and he says of course he does, but he also doesn't want to prevent his wife from having kids, and they don't live together anymore, but they do talk almost daily, and they're both having trouble moving on. And he asks if she has any advice. She says, "No, sometimes I want to move on from my marriage too, but She also hits him with, but you don't have kids, which obviously he takes very poorly because he just opened up about the fact that he can't have kids. So she starts profusely apologizing. It's okay, he says, his voice strained. I'm not going tit for tat about this, but not being able to have kids at all is a hell of a lot harder than divorcing someone you have kids with. I don't know about that, honestly, but Petra agrees with it. And he admits that he was spying on her when she was saying goodbye to her husband and her kids, and that it made him so angry that he almost wanted her to get caught so that he could have what Shepard takes for granted. And this actually thrills her, and they do the deed again. But after that, they pull into a cove, and she tells him that she has to go home this weekend for her daughter's birthday party, and she weirdly hopes that he'll fight it, but he just nods. And yeah, girl, I don't think he's gonna tell you not to go to your daughter's birthday party. It would be weird if he did. But yeah, then they see Marie in the water face down, and Saint dives in to save her, but then she comes up with goggles and says, I know how to swim, you dumbass. I had a snorkel literally sticking up out of the water. I'm in a bathing suit. Aren't detectives supposed to know what context clues are? She starts marching toward the shore, water splashing all around her. Can't even get a peaceful swim out here anymore, she mutters. Yeah, this whole scene is pointless, I guess, just for comedy.
Faked out again.
And they just walk back to the cabin. And the chapter ends by her going, the fact that he's married, but he's also available, feels like a big change. I can't help but insert images of him into my future, wondering what it would be like to no longer be holding the weight that is Shepard. She is over her marriage. We go into chapter 18. She's back home for her daughter's birthday. She's thinking this normal, safe part of life, like a cooking out in the yard with the neighbors over, is what she loves about her life with Shepard. She's thinking about how she wishes she could have that, but also the danger and thrill she has of Saint when Nora pulls her out of her thoughts by asking if she's thinking about the hot cop. Of course, Nora's referring to the book character, not Saint, but obviously, this throws off Petra a little bit. Then her daughter calls her attention, asking her to look at this rogue balloon that's flying, when she sees none other than Saint's nondescript black car parked behind some oak trees. And then she gets pissed, thinking how he has the audacity to just show up here at her home, especially when he gave her shit before for following him. But girl, she seems more upset about that than the fact that he's stalking her. But anyway, when everyone's distracted, she slips around behind the house and gets into the car with him to confront him. And she's like, I thought homes were off limit, but he's like, it's different now. How is it different? I challenge, my arms crossing over my chest, a defensive barrier. He shifts, turning more fully toward me, his elbow resting on the center console. You're in danger. My brow furrows. Danger? What are you talking about? A cold trickle of unease joins the anger. Rhea, you've received death threats. I can't let you go unprotected.
You gotta be kidding me.
Good fucking God. I stare at him, a snort of disbelief escaping me, sharp and involuntary. I'm at my home. This is my daughter's birthday. I don't have time for this shit. Saint. Rhea, he says. Stop calling me that. This is ridiculous. You found a flimsy reason to intrude on my personal space, and I'm angry. And he finally breaks character and tells her to relax. Like, does he really think she's going to confront her husband or something? And she's like, maybe. This is honestly terrifying. And he's hurt by that and says he would never do that. And she's like, I just need you to leave. And she gets out of his car and she thinks, this is my home. I think he might be crazy. I think I might be crazy. And then we go to chapter 19. She returns back to the cabin, telling herself that it's to finish the book, not to see Saint, but she knows it's really because he's there and she's not finished with him. And she pulls up to the cabin and of course his car's there. She has very mixed emotions about him being there, but ultimately she wants to see him. And she gets into the house and Bro's just casually cooking lasagna like it's a normal Monday or something.
Once again, my life has been saved by the miracle of lasagna.
And we get this interesting tidbit. And good God, he's wearing socks. Why am I a sucker for a guy in a clean pair of socks?
Huh?
Weird turn on. Now I'm concerned that your husband only wears dirty socks for this to turn you on so much. But then they awkwardly sit down to eat until he breaks the silence, saying he's sorry. I only did it because I wanted you to feel truly alive. I thought it might be fun, or that it might shake something loose, inspire you in some way. I stare at him, disbelief battling with a minuscule flicker of understanding. Adrenaline is a powerful muse, he says simply, and to be honest, I think you need more adrenaline in your life. I've met your husband. The dig makes me angry, but also forces me to suppress a laugh. Yeah, bro's just crazy. And laughing about him dissing your husband fucked up. Yeah, he apologizes again. He apologizes again and says his purpose here is just to inspire her writing, which actually disappoints her because she was secretly hoping that he wanted to ruin her marriage. Did I mention therapy yet? Then he tells her that he read the work she sent him while he was watching her at her home. I don't know why you aren't the cockiest writer in the world. You're so great. Is that what everyone is telling you, Miss Hoover? I bet it is, because you keep getting published.
Whatever happened to standards?
Anyway, she gets shy from his praise, but he says she deserves to hear it, that she didn't used to shy away from praise and compliments in her videos, and she should get back to that person. This touches Petra's heart, and her feelings are validated, and they finish eating, and instead of getting it on again, he leaves her to write. And we go into chapter 20. Marie comes barreling through her door with her hair all crazy, but before they get to talking, Saint tells her he's coming over tonight. Yes, he's telling, not asking. She asks what he wants her to cook, and he says, whatever you want, Rhea. Can we knock off this character play shit, really? It's so cringe. But then she refers to him as Cam, forgetting that Marie is still listening, so now she's like, oh great, Marie probably thinks I'm sleeping with 3 guys now. But then Saint, as Cam, says to her, Rhea, I love you. And she says it back. Yeah, and they hang up, and Marie is like, you called him by the wrong name, by the way. And she's like, it's a nickname. And then I thought there was going to be some kind of conversation here where Marie brings up her husband and kids and how she's sleeping with 2 men, but no, she just leaves. Well, after offering to give her a recipe to make for Saint. So Petra is driving to the store, but she stops at a gas station because she's thinking, oh, I want to see if they have a newspaper because I want to read more about the incident that took place the night she met Saint. And she even thinks about changing the scene in her book of how Rhea and Cam met to how Petra and Saint met. But yeah, she gets in the gas station, she finds a newspaper, which the town only puts one out a month because it's such a small town, there's so little news. So it should mention something about the incident, right? But no. So she asks the clerk if there's another paper gonna be out soon or if there's any other papers, and he asks why, and she tells him she's just looking for info about that police chase the other night. And he's like, what police chase? And she tells him where, and he says, if there was a police chase and a suicide on Hunter Trail, I would have heard about it. So that's suspicious. But then, what do you know? Louis, Marie's husband, enters the store, and the clerk asks him if he's heard of any police chase or suicide on his road, and Louis says no self-inflicted death since 2014, and no police chase even longer than that. And Petra is obviously confused and tells Louis that, like, even his wife knows about it. The detective talked to her too, and Louis says they don't even have detectives in this town. So she's like, oh, I have one picture I took of me and Saint. She shows it to Louis, and she asks if he's a police officer in town. And Louis says the police here only wish they could look like him. And obviously, Petra's really confused, especially because Marie said she talked to him too. And Louis is like, well, show the gas station clerk because he's the closest gas station to the lake, so he's probably seen him before getting gas. And the clerk recognizes him. He says he drives a black car, but he doesn't know him. He just assumed that he's staying in a rental because he's only seen him here the past couple of weeks. And, Louis senses her distress at this information, and he says, Petra, I don't know who this man is to you, but I can assure you he is not from around here. And he definitely does not work around here. Not as a cop, not even as a security guard, not even at Taco Bell. We don't have a Taco Bell, Bill says. That's why I know he doesn't work there, Louis responds. The certainty in his tone makes my stomach turn. Louis's eyes are sharp, searching mine for some kind of explanation, but I have none to offer. Me and Bill know everything about everyone in this town, he continues, his voice firm, but not unkind. Unless they're here on vacation in one of the cabins. His words hang in the air like a warning, a truth I'm not ready to accept, but I own most of those, and he is not one of my current guests. So she's spiraling, wondering who the fuck Saint is, and what was with the police chase, and how Marie met them too. And she runs out of the gas station and drives straight to Marie. And we go into chapter 21. We're almost done, guys. Don't worry. She gets to Marie's house and she's questioning her about that night and the man who killed himself, and Marie agrees it did happen. So she tells her about the whole gas station discovery and asks if Saint is a real detective or if she's going insane. And then Louis pulls into the driveway and Marie's like, shit, he doesn't remember, I say, turning back to Marie. Louis has no recollection of Saint ever coming to talk to you guys about what was happening that night. He's a heavy sleeper. I may not have woken him up. Marie smiles and pats my shoulder. Okie dokie, you better get back. You've got company coming tonight. Louis has exited his truck and is making his way over to us. Marie looks nervous. It makes me instantly uneasy how she is trying to dismiss me. Someone isn't being honest. So, of course, Louis is questioning Marie about this whole thing and asks her what the hell she's gotten herself into this time. Louis throws his hands up as if he knows this too. I don't want to know. If there's a body, I don't want to know. There wasn't a body, Marie says to him defensively. Not a real one. Not a real one. Yes, there was, I said. You told me you saw it. Louis grabs the front door and opens it, but before he walks inside, he looks at Marie with a very serious expression. I'm going in the house. I want no part of this. But whatever it is, you better tell this woman the truth because we need that rental money and I'm not getting sued over whatever wacko stunt you're pulling. Stunt? Sued? Louis, wait, I say, pleading, but he disappears inside and slams the front door. Now I'm just out here with a very guilty looking Marie. I'm on the verge of tears. Tell me whatever it is you aren't telling me, I say to Marie. If you don't, I'm calling the police and I'll ask them myself. What would you even ask them? Marie says. With that question, she takes a seat in one of the two rocking chairs that flank her front door. She looks up at me, and it's as if her entire demeanor changes right in front of my face. You going to ask them if the man you're having an affair with actually exists? Yes. The way her response so easily spills out of her makes me shiver. Marie, please, I feel very scared right now. Please, just tell me what the hell is going on. Marie sighs, then gestures toward the other rocking chair. Sit. This might take a minute. I don't want to sit. I want you to speak. Sit, and I will. Just fucking tell me, I yell. I can't take this another second. Marie's eyes widen in response to my outburst. Fine, she says. Okay, well, my body is trembling so much I have to fold my arms over my chest to give myself some sort of anchor, but I'm not sitting down in this crazy woman's chair until she tells me what the hell she knows. I apologize for what I'm about to tell you, I really do, but you have to understand how bored I get sometimes. Louis pulled me away from Los Angeles out here to the middle of nowhere, and nothing fun ever happens. I could sit in my chair for 2 solid weeks without speaking to another. Get to the point, Marie, I say. I can't take a second more of her rambling. Fine, she says, huffing. He paid me off. My mind takes a moment to wrap around those words and what all they could mean. Who paid you off? For what? Saint, Cam, whoever he is. I caught him out there in the road that night he told you there was a police chase. There was no police chase. A tear spills down my cheek. I wipe it away angrily, upset that my sadness is breaking through my anger. At first, I saw the police lights and thought something actually happened. I almost woke up Louis, but decided I'd just go outside and walk down toward your place to have a look for myself. And that's when I saw the guy. He was setting out fake police lights in the road. There weren't any actual cops, no body, just lights. He had some on his car. He put a couple in the tree out by your house. I confronted him. I'm not scared of people, and he was on a road being suspicious, so I asked him what the hell he was doing. I caught him red-handed. I told him I was going to call the cops, and that's when he came clean. He said he knew you, and reassured me that he was just playing an innocent prank. I didn't feel comfortable with that, so I demanded to know more. He showed me the lights and offered to show me his identification. Told me he was just there because you're a writer and that you work better if things happen to you that you're writing about. Hell, it sounded like a reasonable explanation, and he didn't seem to be threatening. Promised I could wait out by the road until he left to make sure he didn't kill you. He said he was just there to give you inspiration for your book. That it's something you two worked up. He said I knew about it. Marie nods. Yep. I mean, he didn't go into detail about how much you knew, but he said you asked him to scare you. And like I told you before, I know how it is to be an artist. Sometimes we gotta do things to get the juices flowing. I just figured it was some kind of kink or fetish that was between the two of you. I tried to mind my business, but I also wasn't going to just let some stranger kill you. I did wait until he left. I rubbed my temples with my fingers, attempting to navigate everything she just said. That night was the first night I ever met Saint. He pretended not to know I was a writer. But if what Maurice is saying is true, and he already knew who I was, he's been lying to me this entire time. This stranger has been lying to me and fucking me, and I have no idea who the hell he is. So she asks Marie why she didn't just call the police, and Marie says he made her an offer he couldn't refuse. He paid her to pay pretend, and she loves money, and didn't think that Petra would be in harm's way, so she agreed. And when she came by the next day and Petra told her that she kissed him, she seemed happy, and Marie just figured it was something they did all the time. She says she was surprised when her husband showed up, but she stayed out of it. It wasn't her business. Petra's obviously pissed at Marie, but Marie just says she was an innocent bystander, and Petra tells Marie she's an awful person and to go fuck herself, and storms off, but she turns around and says, I want a full refund, which honestly she should definitely get. And you know, I did say before that Marie was probably the most interesting character. Does she suck? Hell yes. But she's still more interesting than anybody else in this book, because that's a crazy thing to agree to. And we're on to chapter 22. Petra goes back to the cabin and she's furiously Googling Nathaniel Saint. Of course, nothing comes up. He lied about his name. I know that much now. The realization hits me like a ton of bricks, cold and heavy. Every conversation, every touch, every moment we spent together runs through my mind like a distorted film reel. My leg is bouncing wildly under the table, my nerves completely shot. How could I have missed this? I feel like a fool, like I let him walk right through my life, leaving chaos in his wake, and I never even questioned it. Well, Petra, I'm not gonna say you deserved any of this, you definitely didn't, but like maybe the lesson here is don't cheat. Just saying. She does an image search with this picture on Google. Of course, Google doesn't work, but then an ad pops up to search it for a fee. She does that, and one of the pictures matches and is linked to a Facebook profile under Eric Kingston. Everything is private on the page though, so she Googles his name. She only finds a private Instagram, but it does have his middle name listed as Merle, so she puts it in a background check site that also charges her, and a LinkedIn pops up and the dude's resume reveals that he is a screenwriter, and she's still trying to tell herself that maybe he really is a detective and he's just under super deep cover, but she's just in denial. She also finds a phone number. Of course, it perfectly matches Saint's. Why would he lie to me about who he is? It makes no sense. Nothing about this makes sense. If he's a screenwriter, does he have a connection to people I know? Is he connected to the adaptation that I wish never happened? Is he connected to Alistair McFuckity-Fuckface? How did he even know I was here? How did he know before meeting me to tell Marie that we were doing something related to my writing? I thought that was my idea. After I met him, I replayed all in my head, searching for clues, for signs that I missed, signs that this man wasn't who he claimed to be. But all I'm left with is confusion, a thick fog of unanswered questions clouding my thoughts. I turn back to the screen, my eyes scanning the information. His address is listed in Los Angeles. Los Angeles. Hours away from here, miles from the small town where he claims to live. My stomach twists into a tight knot. Why would he pretend to live here? At this point, I don't care about the why anymore. I don't care about anything except getting out of here. The panic rises in my chest, thick and suffocating, and all I know is that I can't stay here for another minute. I feel like I'm trapped in a nightmare, one I can't wake up from. The walls of the cabin seem to be closing in around me, the silence suffocating. I need to leave. Now. So she frantically packs all her stuff and is about to leave when she runs into Saint in the kitchen, and he's looking at her laptop screen, obviously seeing that she's figured out who he really is. Then he finally turns around and sees her with her suitcase, and he's like, "You're leaving?" And she says, "You aren't a detective." He asks why she looked him up, why she couldn't just leave alone, which is crazy. He asks if she thought knowing the truth was going to change anything. And she's like, "Are you gonna hurt me?" And he's hurt that she would think that. "Why did you lie to me?" My voice cracks on the last word, a mixture of fear and anger laced into it. I need answers, but more than that, I need him to stay back, to give me time. He takes a step forward instead, closing the distance between us once again. His expression is unnervingly calm as he says, "It's what you wanted, Petra." The audacity of his words hits me like a slap. I can't help but fume at that response, my fear momentarily drowned out by a flash of rage. "It's what I wanted?" I repeat, incredulous. "I didn't even know you existed before you showed up here pretending to be a detective." My voice rises with each word, frustration bubbling over. I know nothing happened out on the road that night. You lied about everything, and you told Marie you were here to help me write. How would you even know to say that? The accusations and questions spill out in a rush, each one more desperate than the last. He tilts his head slightly, narrowing his eyes at me like he's weighing how much to tell me. The gesture is chilling, his calm composure making everything feel more surreal. Do you not remember your words 2 nights before I showed up here? He asks. My words? What is he talking about? My mind scrambles to make sense of his question, but nothing clicks. The confusion must be playing on my face because he takes another step toward me, his eyes locked onto mine, and says, Your live video. His tone is deliberate, like he's explained something simple to a child. You said you wished you could experience the things you write about. You said your character was a cop. I brought that to you. The words are heavy and disorienting. This makes no sense. I try to process what he's saying, but the pieces don't fit together. If he showed up here pretending to be a cop because of the live video, that means he knew who I was before he ever walked through my door. He was watching the video as it was live 2 days before I even met him, which means he's been following me in my private group. My stomach churns with the sickening realization that this wasn't some random encounter. He's been planning this, watching me for God knows how long. How long has he been following me online? The thought makes my skin crawl. My hand is still in my back pocket, my fingers desperately trying to figure out how to reach 911 on the phone without looking at it. I keep talking, my voice barely above a whisper, hoping he won't focus too much on the arm behind my back. How long have you been watching me? I need him to keep talking, need to buy myself time. Since the beginning, his tone is casual, like he's discussing the weather, but the words send a chill down my spine. I already told you I've seen every one of your live videos. I just left out the fact that I watched them as they happened. Bro's just a full-on stalker. He lied about having a wife. He lied about the whole kid issue thing. And this whole time, she's been trying to use her phone behind her back to call 911, and he finally catches onto this. So Petra runs to the bathroom, but he yanks her back and throws her phone across the room. He screams that he hasn't done anything wrong and asks what she would even tell the police, that he roleplayed too well. She responds that he has been impersonating a cop. Girl, you could also get him for stalking, I'm sure. You wanted me to. His voice rises, frustration boiling over as he glares at me. Your online Q&As are like an open invitation into your life. You've told your readers for years what lake you come to. You let the whole world know when you're here alone. You even answered my question when I asked if you would be willing to do something like this. You said I would do anything to be a better writer. The realization hits me like a punch to the throat. Oh my god. My pulse stutters into my chest as I stare at him wide-eyed. He's the one who asked that question. He thinks I was asking for this? Well, yes, Pete already said that you asked for this. I don't know why the realization is just hitting you now. But anyway, they go back and forth about how he thinks she wanted this. She denies it, obviously. He just twisted everything she said in the live stream to make it seem like she wanted this. And she's like, I've never lied to you. But then he brings up that she lied about being a wife and a mother, and none of her readers even know that she pretends to be someone she's not every day of her life. But hey, food for thought here, buddy. Have you ever heard of privacy? I don't think her readers need to know that she's a wife or a mother. But he keeps cornering her and says that you're welcome for the inspiration. And she comes to the realization that he isn't really married, so if their affair comes to light, he really doesn't lose anything, and she loses everything. I haven't just reached rock bottom, I've burrowed myself through the rock, and I'm now sinking into the earth's mantle on my way to the core. Down, down, down I fall. In the midst of my spiraling thoughts, it comes to me, a title for this book, Woman Down, because that's what I am, how I feel. It perfectly describes the trajectory of my life, which will more than likely mirror Rhea's. If I survive this, that is, the book may never get finished because I have no idea if I'm safe or doomed right now. First of all, is this really the time to be brainstorming book titles? Second of all, more like Woman Down Bad, because you slept with a married man you didn't even know just because he appeared to be a hot married cop?
Whatever twists your knickers.
She then asks him if he's going to tell her husband, as if her safety in this situation isn't the most important thing. And he asks if she really thinks that he would do that to her, to which she responds that she has no idea what he's capable of. And he goes, I'm capable of a lot of things, but destroying you isn't one of them. Then he drops this line. Do me a favor, Petra, he says, his voice dropping lower, almost a whisper. when you finish this book dedicated to Saint because he fucked that story out of you. Honestly, kind of true. Good lord, she says. My intellect is screaming at me to protect myself, to run, but my nerves and the warmth building in my stomach are craving the opposite. My body still wants him to touch me, to kiss me, to fuck me. She does try to be smart and tell him to leave, but then he starts kissing her and she's like kind of into it and has this internal battle, but she finally pushes him away and runs. And she grabs all her stuff, her laptop, luggage, everything, and gets into her car. As she turns the car on, he's standing in the doorway looking oddly calm. And as she backs out of the driveway, he just waves. She drives and cries, thinking about her husband and daughters and how selfish she's been. She isn't even sure they are safe from Saint, but he seemed satisfied with playing his sick fantasy out, so she's hoping that he will leave them alone. And then she gets a call from Shepard, who notices she sounds upset, but she just says she isn't feeling well. He sweetly offers to make her soup to have when she gets home. And of course, this furthers her guilt, but she agrees. And they say, I love you, and goodbye. She hangs up, and then she blocks Saint's number. And then we're on to chapter 23. She is in bed with Shepard, who just finished reading her book. She is hoping he won't ever know that the story is inspired by real events. And I just gotta say, it's crazy work to have your husband unknowingly read about your affair. Crazy work. But he tells her it was thrilling and maybe his favorite book of hers so far. I don't know what made this one different, he says, his voice quiet, almost reverent, but it felt, I don't know. I can't put it into words without insulting your other books. He pauses, smiling softly as his eyes trace my features. It felt authentic. He kisses me again, this time on the lips, tenderly, then pulls back with a mischievous grin. Kinda turned me on, honestly. Oh boy, reading about your wife's affair unknowingly turned you on. That's fucked. That's fucked. Would it be redundant if I suggested therapy again? Yes? Okay, I'll shut up. Chapter ends with her saying, we have more sex now than we did before Saint came into my life. I think part of it has to do with the fact that I feel like I've betrayed Shepard in so many ways that making love to him is my Hail Mary. If I give Shepard his favorite thing, maybe it'll erase some of the terrible things I've done. But I also make love to Shepard more often now because when he is inside me, I close my eyes and pretend I'm being fucked by Saint. And even though I live with constant guilt and regret, I'm still human. I still have depraved fantasies that will never be spoken aloud to another human, which is why when Shepard is fucking me, I imagine Saint in his place. Okay, you just said that. But Shepard can't read my thoughts because I'm human. You just said that too. And no matter how much of a lesson I've learned in life, I can be whoever I want to be in my fantasy. And in this particular fantasy, I'm out on the lake in the boat with Saint, and he's the one who just crawled on top of me after reading Woman Down. Anyway, chapter 24.
I thought this was over.
It's the official release date for Woman Down. She is super nervous to get on stage and answer all of the readers' questions. Nora, who's there with her, is reassuring her that she's done this a million times. She's got it. So she goes on stage. The manager introduces her, and then they begin taking questions. She gets one question about why she agreed to take Caleb out of the movie, and she basically answers that she trusted the team to know what would make a better movie since it isn't her field, and every time she did give her opinion and fought to keep Caleb, she was met with resistance. The audience groans at this, and she's like, hold on, I'm not blaming anyone. The producer and team just had a different version in mind. But why did you deny having a part in it? We all saw the text exchange. I can feel heat crawling up my neck, but I knew this was inevitable, so I faced it with complete honesty. Honestly, I made the post saying it wasn't up to me because, honestly, it wasn't. If I had it my way, I would have been faithful to the book. But not to your husband. I would have been faithful to the book, but I lost confidence. I gave up and I gave in when I should have fought harder for Caleb, and that's no one's fault but my own. For that, I'm sorry, because for what it's worth, I am team fucking Caleb. And team fucking Saint. And the audience erupts into applause. Okay, my question is, why couldn't she have just said that years ago after the backlash? That would have lessened a lot of the hate she received. But yeah, she's asked another question, and who does she see in the crowd? Saint, of course, or Eric, I guess. And he raises his hand to ask a question. His question, he says, I only have one question. Where do you get your inspiration from? She gets angry, but she answers a simple from life, people, experiences. And then he's like, wait, one more question. Well, it's not a question really, more of a comment, but I just want you to know I couldn't put this book down. I hung on to every single word. It's almost as if I were there in the room with you, experiencing the things these characters experienced. That takes true talent, Petra. You are very, very good at what you do. So this pisses her off, but she swallows her anger and finishes the Q&A. After that, there's a book signing, which of course Saint waits in line for, and he asks her if she can make the book out to Saint. She signs it to Eric as a fuck you, and he's like, what, no personalization? So she writes, an absolute, complete, and total stranger, may you have the life you deserve. I intend for the words to be a slap in the face, but he grins. That cocky smile grates on my nerves like nails on a chalkboard. He leans in closer, his voice dropping to a low murmur that only I can hear. Thank you for the dedication. And he walks away, but then she sees him wave someone over. And she's like, who does he know here? Turns out it's Nora, her best friend. And she gets fearful. She's like, oh god, is this not the first time he's done this to a writer? Is he gonna target Nora next? What's going on? So she finishes the book signing, but then frantically searches for Nora, and she finds her outside leaning against a car talking to Saint. And she thinks that Nora looks guilty, like she might have been flirting with him, but then she also notices that Saint looks guilty too. Why do both of them look like they have something to hide from me? Has something already happened between them? Am I too late? I walk closer to them, hesitant. What is this? I ask, my eyes trading glances with each of them, waiting for one of them to speak. Saint and Nora glance at each other with a look that indicates they share a secret. My head is spinning. Do you know him? I ask her, then my attention lands on him. Stay away from her. Petra, Nora says, sounding shocked by my anger. I don't give her time to make it seem like I'm overreacting. She has no idea what he's capable of, or that, if anything, I'm underreacting. Stay away from her, I say to him. He lifts both hands in a peaceful gesture and takes a step back. Petra, Nora says again, why are you being like this? He's lying to you about who he is. Do not trust him. Whatever he says, he's lying. Nora doesn't react like I expect her to. Instead, she and Saint share, it's like saying she sure, share another knowing look, but this one is chock full of shame. She folds her arms over her chest and looks down at the pavement. I wait for one of them to elaborate, but neither of them does. Nora eventually peers up at me with eyes that hold a level of betrayal like I've never seen in another human. Eric is an old friend of mine. The word sounds like echoes reverberating around in my heart. He's what? It's as if my world turns gray. All the possibilities of what that could even mean are slamming into me from every direction. Petra says, attempting to reassure me, or Eric, whoever the fuck he is, steps forward, but I hold up a hand. Don't come near me, I say to him. Then to her, what the hell are you talking about? Nora sighs and then glances toward the bookstore behind me. People are lingering, but not close enough to hear our conversation. She lowers her voice almost to whisper. You were stuck, Petra. I was trying to help. Her voice is a plea for forgiveness, but I'm still not sure what she's done that requires my forgiveness. How is Nora, my best friend in the whole fucking world, involved in what happened between me and Saint? She continues by saying, Eric and I, after my live video with you ended that night, we were chatting online. We joked about how it would be nice if he could help you get out of your slump, and you seemed so desperate for inspiration. I cannot believe what I'm hearing. Every feeling and emotion I went through when I thought this was merely Saint's idea is amplified. I can feel the tears stinging my eyes. This isn't true, I say with a twinge of hope. You're joking, right? If you know him, why have you never mentioned him? I haven't seen him since college, she says. We've been friends online since then. You don't know every single person in my life. She sounds defensive, but I'm the only one here with any reason to feel defensive or angry or betrayed. The two of them should feel nothing but sheer and utter shame. But I can't fathom it. Nora, Saint, both of them? You're my best friend, I say, stepping closer. If what you're saying is true, that you sent your friend to inspire me, you knowingly put my marriage at risk. You put me at risk. Nora's expression loses some of the guilt in exchange for confusion. She glances at Saint and then back at me. I don't think I did. She says, all I did was ask him to show up in uniform and knock on your door so you could put a face to your character. She shakes her head, looking between us. He agreed to ask you a question and then leave. Did her eyes land hard on Saint? Did something else happen? She's finally beginning to sound concerned for me rather than concerned about being caught. Nothing happened, he says to Nora. Then he looks at me, sincerity in his eyes. I told her nothing, Petra. Saint says it quickly as if to throw me a lifeline. I am completely in shock. I need time to process this, but I don't know how I can do that when the person I always go to when I need to talk something through is the person I need to talk about. She has completely betrayed my trust, and now she knows there's more to whatever happened, more that I haven't told her, something big. It's not my business, Nora says, but Petra, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened between you two. He said he only spoke for a few minutes, but I swear to you, that is what I'll believe. Forever. Please forgive me. I really was truly just trying to help. I was going to tell you the next day, but he begged me not to. And then we spoke. You sounded like it helped, so I just left it alone. He lies again that nothing happened between them. But then Petra asks if she can talk to him alone, and he tells her that Nora's being honest. She didn't know anything beyond what she said she knew, that they don't talk often, but the night of the live they were talking about her writer's block, and knowing he was in the same state, Nora joked about him stopping by to inspire her. But when he met her, he became so intrigued he kept it up without telling her. He says he never meant to hurt her, he was just attracted to her and let it go too far. And she's like, I don't care, I never want to see you again. And he says, for what it's worth, I would do it again in a heartbeat. She's like, hell no, not me, and leaves to sign the rest of her books. Nora apologizes again, and Petra's still pissed, but ultimately she knows it's not her fault that she cheated. And we go to chapter 25. Oh my god, when is this book gonna end? They get back to the hotel. She's still holding a grudge against Nora and can't sleep. So she does the smartest thing an author could ever do, and she pulls up her Goodreads reviews. And she's searching for any review that she thinks could be from him, but then she gives up. But before she does, she gets an email, and it's a reservation confirmation for the cabin that she wished she was in the first time, reserved in her name for 21 days starting next Friday, only she never made the reservation. And she's trying to make sense of it when another email pops up that says, I think it's time we start working on your next book, Petra. And the book ends there. Honestly, I personally think she does go to the cabin and continue her affair with him. What do you guys think? I think she does. Here are my final thoughts. First of all, you cannot tell me that this just isn't a fanfic about herself. You can't tell me that. You can think that putting an author's note in the beginning asking your readers not to make any connection between your real life and the book is gonna work, but unless you think your readers are dumb as hell, it's not gonna work. Like, the reader is going to make obvious connections about your life to the book. You're telling me that you wrote about an author dealing with backlash after a failed book to movie adaptation. No one was supposed to think that was about you at all. Let's be real, Colleen. I digress though. That wasn't even the worst thing about this book. Nothing happens for about 70% of this book, besides maybe the whole tying her up thing that leads nowhere. It doesn't read as a thriller until maybe the end, but even then, the whole thing just reads more like smut than thriller or even mystery. Basically, all that happens, she meets a married man. He shows up at her cabin and scares her on purpose, leaves her with marks on her wrists, terrified. But then 2 minutes later, she decides she's into it. But oh, plot twist, she also has a husband and kids. And that turns into even more of a turn on for their twisted game. And mind you, we don't even find out till halfway through the book that she has a husband and kids, so it really, it doesn't bring that much, what do I want to say? It doesn't give that much risk. We don't feel like much is at risk, basically. Oh, and then the one weekend you're home for your kid's birthday party, he shows up spying on you. No big deal. He's just that into you. Oh, but he's also lying about his name and his entire identity and profession and has been stalking you this whole time. But it's okay. It's all good. Because she is super duper into it still, and she probably will meet up with him at the cabin again and continue the affair. Let's be so for real. My biggest issue with this book, though, it's advertised as a thriller. There is zero thrill. There's a a lot of secondhand embarrassment and really frustrating choices made by the character. Sure, but thrill? No. The big reveal in the end is that her best friend basically told her to stalk her to give her inspiration for her book, and then nothing interesting happens after the reveal. She's just like, okay, I'll eventually forgive Nora, and oh, I'll probably meet him at this cabin. Let's be honest. The husband never finds out. There's no fallout in any sort of way, no consequences for her at all. If anything, her life is much better because of the cheating, and she's definitely going to continue the affair with this psycho to get inspiration. The only thrillery thing that happens in this entire book is, like I said, him tying her up, but that turns out just to be miscommunication that leads into like a foreplay situation. I thought that it could lead to somewhere interesting, like, oh, maybe he's a murderer. But no, it was just a misunderstanding. And him searching her cabinets and stuff for something leads nowhere. Him leaving the house for a while and then coming back leads nowhere. Why did any of that happen? I thought maybe he's trying to steal her manuscript for some reason, or he's like someone trying to get revenge for her shitty movie or something. I don't know. Something interesting, or at least more interesting than just like a guy obsessed with her writing. But no, that never goes anywhere. We never find out why he was searching through her stuff or why he disappeared for a little after tying her up and then came back. I don't know. It just goes nowhere. But the biggest question I have in all of this, how did this get published? I swear Colleen Hoover is just surrounded by yes men who at this point would publish the toilet paper she uses to wipe her ass. Sorry, but it seems like anything she could write down is immediately published and advertised as a literary masterpiece. But I think this whole thing should have just been left as a journal entry of her complaining about being canceled for the whole movie fiasco. And that's all my thoughts about it. Thank you so much for watching this review. My voice is gone, so I'm sorry if I get really quiet towards the end of the video, but I really appreciate you watching. Again, would love if you subscribed. We could get Monster that cat costume when I hit 1,000 subscribers, and have a great day. Bye.